Right. Okay. And now we go back to Netflix and we're going to talk about Hitman. Hitman. Now, this is a Richard Linklater film that is on Netflix, has been doing great guns because Netflix have started releasing their numbers and telling you how many people have watched it and all that kind of stuff. And there's all these big, massive numbers that don't mean that much to me, but say it's doing well. And it stars Glenn Powell, and it's a story that is written by Glenn Powell and Richard Linklater. So the star and the director wrote this film together. And it's based on an article that was published in an American magazine sometime, I think, in the early 90s. And it was about a guy called Gary Johnson, who was essentially outlining his life as a fake hitman. So the whole idea behind it is that hitmen don't exist. So hitmen who, like, let's say, for instance, let's say, Sharon, you decided, you know what? I've had enough of Sean trying to drag me to the cinema. I need him out of my life. I'm going to find some guy and give him some money, and he's going to take Sean out. And their whole
Nice.
point is like that kind of hitman does the sort of person who will kill somebody for money doesn't exist. But what this guy used to do is that he used to pose as a hitman. So if the police heard about the fact that somebody was looking to get somebody else killed, they would send in this guy and he would pose as a hitman and he would sit down with them and he'll have a wire, he'll be talking to them and he'll essentially get to the point where he's like, where they'll go, yeah, yeah, I want you to kill that person for me. He's like, I need you to say the words. He's like, I want you to kill them for me. Here's the money. And then once that has been done, boom, the person gets captured, ends up in court, goes to the thing. And this film is a fictionalized and they make no bones about the fact that it's fictionalized. They take the kernel of that idea. The character has the same name as the real life person, Gary Johnson. And they take the kernel of that idea. And when you start off, you meet Glenn Powell, and he's kind of like he's a university philosophy professor, and he's talking to people about identity and the id and blah blah blah, what Freud thought and all that. But he's sort of mild mannered, and he supplements his income by working with the police, doing essentially doing all the electronics. So like setting up the wire, doing the recording because he's a bit of a sound buff. But one day the policeman who's supposed to do it, who's supposed to pose as the hitman, they can't put him in there. So they just say Gary, you're up. And he goes in and he finds he has an affinity for it. And he starts getting really into it. Like so much so that when they say this is who our mark is, he will research the person and he will decide what kind of hitman would they want? So would they want like, like a bike rider guy with a tattoo on the neck? Or would they want somebody who's like, seems like, more sophisticated and European? And so, which gives Glenn Powell a lot of fun to be had because he just sort of, there's like a montage of the different hitmen that he portrays where he just sort of like dresses up and does all sorts of accents and everything like that. He's just playing all this role of the difference of hitmen. So he enjoys that. The crux of the movie comes when a lady called Madison, it comes onto the police radar and she wants her husband to be killed because her husband, according to her, is abusive. So he sits down with her in the first meeting, and the first meeting is essentially a meet cute. And this film at the heart is a romantic comedy. It becomes a meet cute, and he's speaking to her, he's talking to her, he's like, and he starts thinking, oh, essentially you can see him begin to think, I'm not sure I want to put this person in jail. And so he pretty much sabotages the operation so that she doesn't say yes, definitely do this. So she doesn't hand him any money, and so she goes free. And he but when he finds out, he finds that everybody likes him as the character that he played. He plays this character called Ron. That's the hitman, and he has his colleagues talking about the fact like they're like, oh Ron, oh I would have a drink with Ron. Someone's like, I would cheat on my husband for Ron, and everything like that. And he's thinking, oh wow, people like me better as this character. And then what happens is that after he lets her off the hook, she gets back in touch with him and says, I've left my husband, everything like that. Do you want to meet up for a drink? And he kind of has this thing of like, well, should I go as Gary? Should I go as Ron? So he keeps up the Ron persona. He keeps up the Ron persona, and then later on, this is all. I'm only going to tell you what's in the trailer. Then later on, as he's in the Ron persona, as he's seeing her and everything like that, her husband turns up dead. So the husband that she was trying to pay him to kill turns up dead. And people are like, okay, what's going on here? And the film becomes kind of like it becomes a sort of action comedy romantic romp as to, oh my God, this is the situation. What are we gonna do? There's a little bit of like, hang on, is she the killer? Is he with a femme fatale here? What does he do? How does he get out of this whole thing? And it's a popcorn movie that sort of tries to ask questions about identity and can you change who you are? And is it better if people like this person more than they like you? Is it okay to try and become that person? And maybe you like that person more than you do, and all that, it has all that kind of stuff in there. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It is very, very, as I said, popcorn. It sort of breezes past. Although, but the problem is, and this has to do with my life at the moment, and has to do with the fact that in Sean has given me 2 weeks, and I still haven't managed to see Bad Boys Ride or Die. This has to do with all that. I couldn't see this film in one sitting. I couldn't see the whole film in one sitting. I had to watch it piecemeal, like in three different bits. And I think when you watch a film like that, it kind of breaks its spell on you a little bit, and you start going, hang on a second. What about that? Hang on a second. That doesn't make any sense. But wait a minute. So for me, it doesn't have quite that sort of like flowy thing that everybody's talking about. I would give it a very high 3 out of 5. It is a lot of fun. Glenn Powell's brilliant. Richard Linklater is always good, as far as I'm concerned. I think Richard Linklater, his films are always good. So I would give it a 3 out of 5. I would recommend it. I'll say go watch it and see what you do. If nothing else, for the Hitman montage, it's really good. Oh, and I did not mention Adria Arjona, who plays Madison in the film, and she is really good. They have good chemistry. They have a real kind of. There's bits of it that made me the first time they meet up reminds me of George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez in Out of Sight. If anybody remembers that, which is one of the most, I think, Out of Sight is one of the most. It's like a textbook example of your two stars in a movie having chemistry and just making you think, yeah, I could see that. I could see that. And I think they do something similar to that in this film. So Hitman, 3 stars, 3+, go watch it.